The kick landed with a blunt, shameful sound that silenced the whole compound. Mama Nkem's walking stick flew from her hand and clattered across the veranda tiles. Her thin body folded sideways into a low wicker chair, wrapper bunched, headscarf crooked, one sandal skidding under the hibiscus bush. The Monday sun spilled over the courtyard, bright on the iron gates, bright on the new SUV parked like a boast, and bright on the leg that hadn't fully healed since the stroke. Her left foot trembled, a small, stubborn leaf in Harmattan wind. Dre stood above her, chest heaving, silver chain flashing at his throat. "You are wicked," he said. Voice tight and heavy with the accent he wore like fashion, Atlanta with a Lagos twist. "You keep keys, you lock rooms, you hide papers. Why? Because you like control. Because you want me crawling for everything." Gasps flickered around the compound, neighbors peeking from balconies, tenants edged by the washing lines, the barber frozen with his clippers mid-buzz on a teenage boy's head. A pot of jollof burned in the kiosk kitchen. Above all those small pauses, the sound that mattered was a breath drawn sharp and helpless. Amara's breath, Mama Nkem's only daughter, face stunned, her hair scarf slipping as she reached for her mother. "Dre!" she cried. "What have you done?" "What she made me do," he threw back, eyes still drilling into the old woman. "She is playing games with us, with our future." His jaw flexed. "Nah, not today." Mama Nkem, who commanded rent, repairs, school fees, and Sunday offerings with soft eyes and clear rules, lifted her gaze from the floor to the man she had let call her Ma. White dust powdered the heel of his sneaker. She watched that dust, then the chain, then his face, which was handsome like a warning sign. Her lips moved. What came out was not a wail and not a curse. It was a proverb. The kind children used to think was old people's riddles until life explained it. "The goat that will chew the owner's yam," she said quietly, "does not fear the rope." Dre rolled his shoulders, impatient. "Enough of these stories. Where are the papers, Mama? Where are the keys to those upstairs flats? I manage the properties now. You said—" "I said," Mama Nkem's voice gathered, "that the day a man becomes husband is not the day he becomes head of a house he did not build." Her left hand searched the seat, found only cane straw. Amara crouched, shaking, trying to lift her gently, but the courtyard had shifted. It leaned toward the stranger who had lifted his foot against an elder. Above them, a tenant finally found his voice. "Oga Dre, easy, oh," he said from the corridor. "She be your wife, Mama." Dre's mouth tightened. He turned to Amara. "Tell her to stop. Tell her to do the right thing. I can't keep running these buildings with secrets everywhere. People are laughing. The tenants don't respect me because your mother treats me like a boy." Amara's eyes were full. "You hit my mother." She tripped on purpose. She always pretends weakness when we need decisions. He raised both hands as if surrendering to invisible police. "I swear she pushed me to this." A dry chuckle rolled from the wicker chair, surprising even the birds nesting in the mango tree. "He says I pushed him with this my leg," Mama Nkem murmured, tapping her shin with 2 fingers. The trembling in her foot smoothed, not because pain had eased, but because something steadier had moved to the front. Resolve that comes from old battles. She turned her head slightly, and for the first time that morning, she stared beyond Dre, beyond Amara. Beyond the compound that bore her husband's name in peeling letters, Chico and Sons Estate, past the iron gate to the dusty street where boys hawked plantain chips and a woman sold goat pepper soup from a silver pot. The world beyond the gate was watching. The world inside, too. Her right hand reached, not for her cane, not for Amara, but for the edge of her wrapper. There, stitched into the hem in thread, so neat even tailors would miss it, was a small lump the size of a kola nut. She pressed it between thumb and forefinger. In the boys' yard, someone laughed. A hawker shouted, "Pure water!" The security guard at the gate, big-shouldered with gentle eyes, shifted his weight and listened for a sound no one else expected. From somewhere under the stoop, a low buzz vibrated. 5 houses down, the estate's alarm system woke up like a careful beast. In a back office across town, a bell pinged on a desk where a man in a navy suit set down his tea. The lawyer's phone lit. Dre didn't hear any of that. He was still speaking, still convinced that volume made truth. "Where is the deed box? Your son, Malik, says it's in your room, but the door is locked. I asked for the key 2 times. 2. Next time, I'll break it." The guard straightened. "Olga," he said with quiet steel, "nobody breaks Mama's doors in this compound." "And who are you?" Dre flared. The guard didn't answer. The street did. Sirens. A police van turned into the lane. Alongside it, a smaller black car slid to a stop, air brakes sighing. Out stepped the man in navy, tall, thin, face cool like rain after a long, dry season. He tucked his tie, glanced once at the compound name, and came through the gate as if he owned it. Maybe, in paper ways, he did. He had drawn up those papers when Amara was 10, and Malik was 8, and the twins were still belly prayers in Mama's womb. He didn't greet Dre. He didn't greet the neighbors. He crouched beside the chair and took Mama's wrist with a familiarity so respectful it looked like ceremony. "Madam Nakem," he said, "I came." The old woman's mouth twitched. Her voice was suddenly far away. "I pressed it." "You did well." He looked up and nodded at the police sergeant, who had already seen many compounds and many husbands. The sergeant's eyes slid to Dre's shoe, to the dust mark, to the trembling foot, and then back to the lawyer. He made a small gesture to his men. "Arrest him," Mama Nkem whispered. Dre laughed, loud and disbelieving. "Arrest me? For what? For telling the truth in my own house?" He spread his arms. Chain flashing. The sergeant lifted his chin. "Olga, you will follow us to the station and explain yourself." "For what charge?" Dre demanded. "For now," the sergeant said, "for assault. Later, we may add that you attempted to force entry to a protected space. We will confirm." A current passed through the gathering. Men who had been boys when Cheeky bought the first 2 flats nodded like trees in wind. Women who sold tomatoes at the junction shifted their baskets and stood taller. Children peered between elbows. And then, as if the rope finally reminded the goat of its duty, the morning folded. Mama Nkem's eyes fluttered. The lawyer's palm tightened around her wrist, found a pulse playing hide-and-seek. "Madam?" he said. Her left hand, the stubborn one, lifted, not to shield, not to slap, but to push the air aside. It searched Amara's cheek as if to confirm softness, then dropped, slow as a curtain. Her head lolled. A hush grabbed the compound by the throat. "Ma!" Amara cried. The lawyer stood, voice sharp now. "Call the driver. We go to St. Jude. Sergeant, your men will accompany us. Guard, lock the main house. Dre, you will come. There will be no more shouting." Dre's bravado dimmed like a bulb on low power. He looked around for allies and found only faces turned away. Even the barber had set down his clippers and folded his arms. They got her onto a stretcher. As they rolled her out through the gate, the lawyer leaned closer and said something only air and God heard. The old woman's eyelids trembled, then smoothed, The procession moved, neighbor eyes following, market eyes following, city eyes following, because some stories pull attention like magnets, and this was one of those. At the hospital, white paint and disinfectant made the air too clean to trust. Fans spun like lazy birds. The emergency nurse was a woman with quick hands and a voice that could hush fire. "Stroke history?" she asked, scanning papers that the lawyer produced the way magicians produce coins. "2 years ago," he said. "Controlled. She takes her blood thin." "Warfarin," the nurse nodded. "Who is next of kin?" "In matters of health, her daughter Amara," the lawyer said, throat thick with unshed words the law had no place for. "In matters of property?" "We'll get there," the nurse cut in gently. "For property to matter, breath must remain." They fit Mama and Kem with tubes and tapes. Machines drew lines across screens like the marks of a farmer who knew where he had planted yams. The doctor came, face lined from night duty. He listened to the lawyer, examined the old woman, nodded, and gave orders with a competence that made Amara's shoulders drop an inch from their panic perch. In the waiting area, under a framed poster about hand-washing, the lawyer finally turned to Doctorow. He wore worry like a well-cut suit, neat, ironed, serviceable. "I am Barrister Udo," he said. "I have served this family since before Amara could ride a bicycle. I speak to you now as the keeper of papers you keep asking about." He paused just long enough to be a teacher, but not long enough to be an enemy. "You don't manage these properties. You assist. You do not sign disbursements. You recommend. You do not open sealed rooms. You request. Do you understand me?" Dre rubbed his jaw. "That is not what Amara said." Amara flinched. I said we could figure it out, that you could help while Mom rests." The lawyer's eyes flicked to her, softened, and returned to Dre. "Help is not the same thing as hold. When Cheeky died, he left his wishes clear with the court. And when his friend betrayed us and tried to sell the old mechanic yard, Madame Nkem tied every loose thread with her own hands. She owns every building. Not just this compound, but the row of shops on Mbari Street, the bus park kiosks, and the warehouse by the lagoon. She signed all titles personally. You should have looked more closely at the painted letters. Olga Dre. It says Chaik and Sons Estate. But the papers on that name are not what the wall says. The builder was a man. The owner is his wife. Dre blinked, stubborn. "And sons? Where are the sons? Shouldn't the properties pass to them? I'm the one married to the daughter. We're the ones here handling things." The lawyer's mouth tilted, a smile that wasn't. "There are sons, yes, but this is not the America where you think everything passes with the ring. In this city, prudence wears a head tie. The will says, when I go, our wife becomes chief custodian. When she goes, the properties will obey the map she draws. Her map is not for you." "Then show me," Dre said, voice cracking around the edges he had polished. "If you say she owns everything, where is the proof? Because right now the tenants treat me like a joke. They say, 'Ask Mama.' They dodge me. They tell me to come back on Thursday. I can't run businesses like this." "You are not running them," the lawyer said evenly. "You are trying to ride. That is different." Silence stretched across the tile floor. A baby cried somewhere. A television murmured football scores to a waiting room that didn't care. The lawyer finally opened his leather folder, a big old thing with the kind of brass corners that tell you secrets live inside. He slid out a photocopy of a deed, the seals black and official, the signatures bold. "Here is one," he said. "Shop Row, Mbari Street. Owner, Nkemdilim Chika. Co-signer, Udo and Co. Trusteeship Clause 4. It states, in the event of any future incapacity, a foundation will hold interim custody until her direct instruction resumes or her will activates. Dre sat forward. Foundation? The Obioma Foundation, the lawyer said, and his voice did something Amara had never heard before. It dropped a shade. A quiet thing, approved by the court, named for the woman who used to plait hair behind our first shop, and told Madame Nkem that coin is like a goat. Tie it, or it will eat your yam. Obioma died poor, so Madame Nkem put her in the memory of documents. Amara blinked. Mom never told me that. She told me to tell you when telling would protect you, the lawyer said. And what does the foundation mean? Dre asked, too quickly. It means nothing leaves her hand without two signatures, the lawyer replied. Hers and mine on behalf of the trust. It means nobody changes rent, sells, or borrows against titles while she is sleeping, sick, or pressured. And it means, listen carefully, it means anyone who tries to force her hand faces the court and the court's friends. Dre leaned back, lips pressed thin. Outside the window, Lagos traffic announced itself with horns and small arguments. Inside, Amara's phone buzzed on silent where she had dropped it in her bag. A message from her brother Malik blinked unread. Another from her cousin Said. Another, sharply worded, from a number saved as Anti-Blessing, Church. We heard noise. Is Mama safe? Call me now. The nurse returned, face steady. She is resting. Not a full stroke. Thanks be to God. A scare. But we must keep her for observation. No stress. No fighting. All three nodded, chastened, as if they had been caught picking mangoes from a neighbor's tree. The nurse looked at Amara with the kind of eye older sisters keep. Who will sleep here tonight? I will, Amara said, before Dre could claim it with voice. Barrister, please stay until Malik arrives. Already here, a voice called from the doorway. Malik walked in, taller than his memory, beard trimmed, eyes that burned and cooled in cycles. He was the son who left for a scholarship in Accra and came back a man who fixed generators by listening to their complaints. He took in the room with one scan. Dre rigid, Amara pale, the lawyer measured, nurse efficient. What happened? He asked. Dre raised a hand. Your mother... Dre hit her, Amara said, not looking at Dre as she spoke, voice flat with the new authority pain gives. He kicked her leg. Malik's jaw set in a line that could cut rope. He looked at the shoe, at the chain, then at the lawyer, and chose the adult in the room. Barrister? It is being handled, the lawyer said. Malik turned to Doctor. You will apologize. Dre bristled. She called me a goat. Malik stared. And you proved her wrong by kicking her? The security guard from the compound appeared behind Malik. He tucked his cap in his elbows like a child at assembly. I came to stand by Madam here, he said softly. To speak, if they ask. The nurse nodded, satisfied by the sudden gathering of people who looked like responsibility. Good, she said. You can see her two at a time in a few minutes. As her steps faded, the lawyer opened his folder again. This time, he took out a plain envelope, not official-looking, just brown paper sealed with a small strip of clear tape. He weighed it in his palm, frowning. What's that? Amara asked. An instruction, he said. Madam gave it to me last week with a proverb and a warning. She said, if loud voices come to our house before the new Yam Festival, open this. If peace holds, keep it until I join my husband. She smiled then, the way women smile when the story they know is longer than the story you think is happening. He broke the seal. Inside was a photocopy of a Bible page, the fly leaf where people write births and weddings. only it wasn't births. It was a list of drawers and hiding places written in neat old-school penmanship. Under mattress, tithe receipts. Blue tin, passport. Kitchen ceiling, spare keys. Wicker chair lining, panic button. Leather Bible, master deed box key. Dre's head lifted at the last line. Leather Bible? His eyes flicked to Amara, then to Malik, and then away, as if the word itself knew where it wanted to travel. The lawyer slipped out another small card, taped to the page. It had 2 sentences on it. "If the master key goes missing," he read aloud, "check the place even thieves fear, not the attic, the altar." Amara's hand went to her mouth. Mom keeps her big leather Bible on her bed, under the pillow. She prays before sleep and after dawn. I saw it this morning when I took her blood pressure. She also takes it to church on Tuesdays, Malik said. She never lets it out of her sight otherwise. He swallowed. A thought bloomed in the room, too big to hide. If the Bible was on the bed this morning, and Mama was hit, and there were voices, and shouting, and sirens. "Guard," the lawyer said quietly. After we left, "Did anyone enter the main house?" "I locked it behind you," the guard replied. "I kept the key in my pocket." "But—" He hesitated, fingers tightening on his cap. "When I went to close the back door, I saw the window of Madam's room was open a little. I thought it was for air." "How little?" Malik asked. "Enough for a hand," the guard said, "not a person." Dre stood too fast, his chair scraping the floor. "You are not about to accuse me of stealing a Bible," he snapped. "Come on." "No one said your name," the lawyer replied calmly, "but the page says what it says. And if we do not find that Bible, we cannot open the deed box because Madam kept that master key hidden like a secret breath." Amara's mind flashed through the morning in quick frames. Her mother's headscarf, Dre's chain, the cane clattering, the scream in her throat, the siren, the stretcher, the gate slamming. She tried to remember the bed. Had the Bible been on it after they carried Mama out? Had someone grabbed it in the chaos to carry to church, to the car, to the lawyer, to anywhere? The nurse returned. "Two may come," she said. Quietly. "Go," the lawyer told Amara and Malik. "I will call the sergeant and send the guard with him to check the house. We will keep eyes open and voices low." Amara and Malik slipped into the ward, moving past curtains that held other families' small battles. In the corner bed, under a clean sheet, Mama Nkem slept with the careful stillness of someone negotiating with God for more days. Her headscarf had been straightened by nurse magic. The tremor had eased to a ripple. Amara took her mother's right hand, Malik the left. "She'll wake," Malik whispered. "She's tougher than we remember." Amara nodded, tears climbing but not falling. "She always has a plan," she said, voice breaking. "Even now." As if to answer, the fluorescent light above them flickered once, just once, and steadied. Amara laughed through her nose. Malik squeezed their mother's hand. Time stretched, thin and taut. Out in the waiting area, Dre paced, flicking his thumbnail against his chain. The lawyer stood near the window, phone to his ear, giving instructions in patient sentences you could fold into your pocket and keep. The security guard hovered at the doorway like a sentinel from a fable, where guardians are quiet and battles are mostly about standing still in the right place long enough. 5 minutes later, the police sergeant arrived at the hospital door. Chest rising with a small run, he nodded to the lawyer, to Dre, to the guard. His face did that thing seasoned men's faces do when disappointment meets duty. "We checked the room," he said. "And?" the lawyer asked. "The Bible is gone." Dre exhaled sharply. a sound that wanted to be relief and failed. The guard made a small, strangled noise and clutched his cap. The lawyer's eyes closed briefly, as if taking a blow had become a familiar hobby. The sergeant pulled a tiny plastic bag from his pocket. Inside was a piece of ribbon, brown leather, cut clean at one edge. "We found this under the window," he said. "And footprints on the outside flower bed. Not shoes. Bare feet." "Bare feet?" the lawyer repeated. "Small ones," the sergeant added, "like a child's, or a woman's with a narrow sole." Dre's jaw worked. "So it wasn't me," he said. "Are we done with this madness now?" The sergeant turned his head, slow. "Olga, innocence is not proved by someone else's footprints. We are still recording statements about the kick." "Who would take a Bible in daylight?" the guard muttered, more to himself than to the room. His eyes went to Dre and away, to the lawyer and away, to the door toward the ward and away. Unless they wanted what was inside more than they feared what was above. The lawyer folded his hands behind his back, and for the first time since he had arrived at the compound, real worry leaked through the seams of his composure. "The altar," he murmured, thinking of the note. "Not the attic. The altar." Dre barked a laugh that died halfway. "What does that even mean?" "It means," the lawyer said softly, eyes on the ward door where Amara and Malik sat with their mother, "that we are not the only ones who know where the power in that house is kept." Before anyone could answer, the hospital's overhead speakers crackled, and a nurse's voice, tight with control, called for the crash cart to Ward C. Then, from behind the curtain where Mama and Kem lay, a sound rose, not a scream, not a shout. A voice, her voice, clear, commanding, too clear for a woman under sedation. "Don't let him near the altar," she said. The words sliced the corridor in two. The nurse's clipboard fell. The guard stepped forward. Dre's chain stilled. The lawyer reached the ward door in 3 strides and drew the curtain aside. On the bed, eyes open and burning, Mama and Kem stared beyond them, past their faces, into some point in the air that held both direction and warning. Her finger shook like a compass trying to settle. "The altar," she repeated. "The real one." Her hand fell. The monitors steadied, beeping with a stubborn rhythm, and at that exact second, across town in the compound they had left, a figure in a plain wrapper slid through the main room toward the small wooden table where a single candle always waited for prayer. The leather Bible, its ribbon torn, lay open on the seat. A key, old brass, heavy, favorite of locks that remember feuds, glinted on the page. A shadow lengthened over it. The figure reached out. In the hospital, the lights flickered twice in quick succession. The lawyer's phone buzzed like a hornet. He looked down. A message from an unknown number lit the screen. "We have what we need. If you love your mother, tell Dre to bring the deed box by midnight." The lawyer stared, and for a moment even his training, all those years of papers and signatures, could not keep his surprise from showing on his face. He lifted his eyes to the room, and to Dr. Dre was already moving toward the door. "Where are you going?" the sergeant demanded, stepping into his path. Dre's mouth pulled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "To get the deed box," he said. "Isn't that what they want?" The sergeant planted a hand on his chest. "You are not leaving." Dre met the lawyer's gaze. "Tell them to choose," he said. "Tell them to decide what matters most before midnight." The corridor seemed suddenly too narrow for the air it needed to hold. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice, as if counting backwards. The lawyer didn't blink. "We don't negotiate with thieves," he said. Dre's smile sharpened. "Then pray they don't negotiate with time." Behind the curtain, Mama Nunkum closed her eyes again, and this time a tear slipped free. Outside, somewhere beyond the hospital walls, thunder muttered, though the sky was bright. And in the compound, a hand hovered over the key, about to snatch a future no one was ready to lose. The sergeant kept Dre in the corridor, while the lawyer made quiet calls. Nurses walked by with cartwheels hissing across tile. A TV in the corner tried to make everyone care about a match in Spain, but the sound was low, and the announcer's voice floated like a tired mosquito. Barrister Udo ended one call and began another. His face didn't change, but his finger tapped the leather folder like a metronome. Malik stepped from the ward to join them, speaking softly so his words wouldn't bounce. "She's sleeping again," Malik said. "The doctor says the first hour is the hour you don't argue with. We'll wait." The lawyer nodded. "Good. The sergeant has men at the compound. They'll seal the gates. We will not bring any box anywhere until we understand who is asking and why they think they can ask." Dre shifted, chain settling against his neck. "You keep acting like I'm the enemy," he said in a lower voice, the volume he used in church to sound humble. "I'm married into this family. I want what's best." "What's best began with not raising your foot," Malik answered. Not loud, not angry, just true. Dre looked away first. The guard, everyone called him Papa Sam, even though his name was Samuel and he was not yet a grandfather, cleared his throat. "Sa," he said to the sergeant, "there is small camera at the mango tree. The one Oga Malik put last month when rats started stealing laundry." "It's not rats that steal wrapper," Malik murmured, a hint of a smile scraping his face and running away. The sergeant's eyes flicked. "You have feed on your phone?" "On my laptop," Malik said. "It stores to a card. If we go to the compound, we can view." Barrister Udo weighed the time. "We split. I remain here with Amara and Madam. Sergeant, go with Malik and Papa Sam." "Dre?" Dre lifted his chin. "I'm going too." "No," the sergeant said simply. Something in Dre deflated under the word. He stared at the clock as if it had insulted him. The minute hand ticked, unimpressed. They moved quickly. Malik ducked back into the ward to touch Amara's shoulder. "We'll check the cameras," he whispered. "Stay with her. If anything changes, call." Amara nodded, eyes rimmed by the kind of tired that had no bed big enough. "Be careful," she said to all three of them. And it sounded like a blessing. The ride back burned through traffic that was always present, like weather. Lagos honked and shimmered and argued. Malik drove the lawyer's car with the calm speed of a pilot. Papa Sam sat forward, elbows on knees, giving small updates. Which tenants had traveled, which ones would gossip, which ones paid rent by placing money under a stone near the hibiscus, and texting Mama Nkem a prayer hands emoji, even though she never used emojis. As they swung onto Oyemakun Street, the estate walls rose, hot and familiar. The iron gates stood open just enough for a police truck to nose in and block anyone's quick exit. Two officers leaned against it, scanning faces with bored sharpness. On the corridor, the barber had turned his chair to face outward, and now watched as if life had become a TV show he could finally follow without commercials. Inside the main house was the kind of neat that meant someone cared. Cloths folded, rugs aligned, a framed photo of Chiki and Nkem on their wedding day. He wore a brown suit too big at the shoulders. She wore a lace that caught light and refused to let it go. Children had been written into that picture by time. Amara, with missing front teeth, Malik with a serious forehead, the twins later on in another frame at their graduation from a little school that bragged about phonics. They paused at the passage to Mama's room. The window was open 2 inches. The curtain stirred. On the floor, the leather ribbon lay in the police bag like a snake that had given up on being dangerous. The sergeant crouched and measured the footprints in the flower bed outside with his hand. "Small. Left foot lighter than right," he said. "A person who runs often but favors one knee." Malik's head turned. "Said plays netball at church," he said slowly, before the thought had permission. "She twisted her knee last season. She wears slippers like this." Papa Sam didn't speak. But his eyes did what soldiers' eyes do when they begin to arrange names and paths and what-ifs like checkers. "Don't guess yet," the sergeant said. "Let the camera speak first." In the sitting room, Malik set his laptop on the center table. The small black recorder from the mango tree camera sat on the TV shelf like a board box. He popped the memory card free, slipped it into the laptop, and clicked through folders, date-stamped like careful bread. The footage came up in squares of sun and shade. Time-stamps played in the corner. At 10:27 a.m., pigeons debated seeds. At 11:03, a tenant carried a bucket of water with more attitude than water. At 11:49, the ambulance lights blinked over the gate. "Back," the sergeant said. "Earlier." Malik scrolled to an hour before the shouting. He pressed play and then leaned closer, squinting. There, by the hibiscus, someone small, in a wrapper and t-shirt, slid along the wall's shadow. The person glanced up at the mango leaves as if greeting the camera, but the head was wrapped and the face turned away. Quick hands lifted the window latch with a spoon. A body folded through the narrow space like ribbon through a ring. 2 heartbeats. 3. Then a hand appeared with the big leather Bible, swollen with age and secrets. The head turned for a second. The sergeant paused the frame. Said. No mistaking the slim jaw, the mole near her ear, the way she tied her scarf like her favorite auntie. Said, who ran the youth choir, who laughed with her whole shoulders, who came on Thursdays to help Mama count tenants' envelopes. Said, who had texted Amara an hour ago asking if Mama was okay. "Play," the sergeant said, voice flat to keep all the other things out of it. Said slid the Bible out, rested it on the sill, and bent to climb back out. When both feet touched the ground, someone else stepped into frame from the back gate. A woman in a pink church dress that knew expensive and wore it. A handbag printed with golden letters, heels that thought gravel was a mistake. Auntie Blessing. She didn't look around. She didn't need to. She took the Bible. Said said something. Her mouth moved fast, and tried to touch the book again, as if to hold it. Blessing's hand came up in a slap that didn't land. It only threatened. Said flinched. Blessing tucked the Bible under her arm and handed Said a white envelope that looked heavy for its size. The sergeant leaned forward so far, his badge almost kissed the screen. "Freeze," he murmured. He rewound 3 seconds and stopped where the envelope opened enough to flash color. Money, dollar blue, and Nara green. Too much to be petty. "Zoom?" Papa Sam asked, forgetting he was a guard and remembering he was a father who had watched girls exchange bad bargains for good reasons. Malik zoomed until Pixels protested. Said put the envelope in her small brown backpack, nodded once as if swallowing a stone, and left through the back gate. Blessing tucked the Bible deeper and walked toward the little room off the parlor, the prayer room they called the altar, where Mama kept her candle, her mat, and her quiet hours. 15 seconds out of the camera's view, then Blessing reappeared without the Bible and slipped out through the palms into the lane like someone who had returned soap to a shelf in the wrong aisle and didn't want to report herself to management. They stared at the paused image. The clock on the wall ticked as if to say, You saw what you saw. The altar, the sergeant said. She put it there. Maybe for safekeeping, Papa Sam offered, his voice hopeful and thin. Or for someone else, Malik said, and the hope tore on a nail. Barrister Udo reached for his phone. Call her, he told Malik. Call Sadie first. Malik dialed. It rang. It rang again. On the third ring, a voice answered bright, brittle with too much cheer. Malik, I was about to call. How is Mama? Where are you? He asked, not wasting sound. At church, she said, too fast, the word landing like a coin on a cracked plate. We are praying for her. Pastor said we should lift up our voices. We are in the small side hall. There is... Hello? Can you hear me? Noise. We saw you at the house, Malik said. We saw the window. On the line, there was a silence that wasn't quiet. It was full of people not speaking. Then Sadie's breath came back, and it was uneven. She told me to, Sade whispered. She told me last night after Bible study. She said, if morning brings thunder, take my Bible and keep it from greedy hands. She said the word altar. She looked at the prayer room. She looked at me like I should understand without questions, and I thought I was helping. Who slapped you? Malik asked softly. Sadeh made a sound. She didn't slap me, she said quickly, loyalty tripping over truth. She said time was short. She said if anyone saw me with the Bible, they would think I was stealing. She told me to leave. She gave me transport money. She said the foundation would refund after. I didn't want to take it. But she... Sade's breath unraveled. Malik, I know how it looks, but I swear, by the God of buses and market women, I didn't take anything else. I left the Bible where she told me. Where? Malik said. The altar room, Sadie answered. Under the candle table where Mama keeps the small carol booklets. There is a loose board. I don't think anyone... Papa Sam was already moving. He reached the small altar room in 5 long steps. The candle sat in its brass holder, wick black from yesterday's prayer. The little wooden table waited with its scratches and its patience. He dropped to his knees, pressed on the 3rd plank. It lifted. He slid it aside. Empty. The space was a small mouth with nothing to say. Papa Sam's breath hitched. He straightened and turned slowly, face drained, like a man who found a well where a door should be. It is not here, he called. On the phone, Sadeh heard the words and made a small animal noise. But I put it... Who else was there? Malik asked. The church was quiet, she said in a rush. But Auntie Blessing called me after. She said if anyone asked, I should say I had taken Auntie to the clinic. She said I should mind my mouth. Malik, I'm scared. Stay with Pastor, Malik said. Stay where people can see you. Don't go anywhere with her. He cut the call and met the sergeant's eyes. What now? We pay our respects to God's house, the sergeant replied, and ask its treasurer some questions. They left 2 officers in the compound and drove to the church at the junction, the one that grew like a stubborn plant in concrete, block by block, offering by offering, hands by hands, until it owned a bell that worked and pews that didn't splinter clothes. Auntie Blessing's Honda was not in the lot. Sade's slippers were. Inside, a handful of women knelt on mats, murmuring. Pastor Jonah, a man with hairline like a receding tide and a smile that seemed made for baptisms, stepped down from the altar when he saw the uniforms, his face arranged into welcome and worry at the same time. Sergeant, he said, using the local pronunciation that made the rank sound like a person you might meet at the tailor's shop. We heard Madame Nkem is unwell. We are praying. We thank you, the sergeant said. We also need the key to the vestry and any store under the altar. Church treasurer, blessing. Does she have them? Pastor Jonah nodded slowly. She keeps the second set. Why? We need to look, the sergeant said. And we need to ask her where she placed a Bible that was not hers to move. The pastor did not ask for details. He went to the side door and called for Sade. She came from the hall where texts are shared and gossip pretends to be prayer request. Her eyes were red in the underwater way of people who cry with their whole lungs. She pointed to a small drawer near the choir stand. The pastor opened it with a key from his neck chain. Inside lay a set of church keys on a ring, heavy enough to solve an argument. The pastor handed them to the sergeant. I did not know Blessing took the other set this morning, he said, troubled. We usually leave them here except Sunday. They tried the vestry first. Clean shelves, brass candlesticks polished by someone who believes in shining, a lockbox for offerings, shut and sealed. Nothing. Then the altar itself, a wooden table with a white cloth and a cross that had been repaired so many times it had the dignity of scars. The sergeant knelt, felt along the base, found a recessed latch, and lifted a small square panel that no one would see unless they had changed the cloth when Pastor's baby had smeared pap on it during Thanksgiving. Inside the hollow lay wax stubs, a matchbox, and nothing else. Not a Bible. Not a key. There was, however, a printed receipt bearing the letterhead of Obioma Foundation Storage Facility. Malik picked it up. The ink had streaked in one corner where someone had placed a damp palm. It listed a monthly rental fee and a location he didn't recognize. Oworo Industrial Yard, Unit 13. Date stamped last year. Signature, B. Adebayo, Blessing's married name, on behalf of N. Chike, authorized. The lawyer studied it. She has access as treasurer, he said, voice careful. A legitimate proxy for deliveries. But this receipt? We did not authorize moving anything today. The sergeant's jaw worked. He tucked the receipt into an evidence envelope and gave it to Malik to hold. We go now, he said. If they are after the deed box and they found the altar Bible, they will go where a proxy can fetch from. They will not wait until midnight if they think we are slow. They left the church with Pastor's blessing trailing them like incense. In the car, Malek called Amara and gave the shortest version that could still be called an update. He could hear her breathing through the phone, steadying herself as if standing in heavy wind. I'll tell Barrister, she said. Be careful. Oworo Industrial Yard lay at the edge of water that looked older than the city and less impressed by hustle. Tin roofs clung to warehouses lined like soldiers who weren't sure what the war was about anymore. The gateman was all elbows and suspicion. The sergeant flashed his badge. Suspicion became hospitality. Unit 13, he said. Back row. Tenants come and go. Some keep noisy machines. Some keep silence. They parked beside a row of units, painted numbers by hand. Unit 13's lock glinted, bored and healthy. No signs of a break. The sergeant tested the handle. Secure. Keys? He asked. The lawyer spread his hands. If this belongs to the foundation, Blessing holds operating keys. I hold documents, not iron. Malik looked around. A hawker pushed a wheelbarrow of fan ice past, humming a tune from Sunday school. A boy rode a bicycle with one pedal, balancing trouble and talent. Wind carried brine and rumor. Papa Sam scanned the roofline. There, he said, pointing. A small dome camera sat like a lazy lizard above the corridor. They watch who comes and goes. The sergeant whistled to the gateman. Your manager? Inside office, the man said, jutting chin toward a prefab cabin painted a defiant blue. He drinks tea like it pays rent. The manager arrived in a swirl of cologne and apology. "We keep logs," he said. "We want police to like us. When thieves like you, you will not like yourself." He led them into a room cooled by a fan that worked too hard for its size. He queued up video feeds until Unit 13's camera showed itself on a dusty monitor. They watched the last few hours spool backward. At 12:10 p.m., a van with tinted windows slid into the corridor and stopped at Unit 13. Blessing stepped out first, handbag fastened like a mouth that didn't want to speak. 3 men followed. Not boys. Not braggarts. Men who wore plain clothes, as if they'd read the manual. One carried the big leather Bible like a baby you wanted to give away. Blessing opened Unit 13 with a key. They went inside. The camera couldn't see the interior. At 12:23, the men came out. None carried a Bible. One rolled a small iron trunk like a stubborn dog on a leash. Old, square, dented at the corner, the kind people brag about because their fathers once hid tax documents and cash in similar boxes. They lifted it into the van. Blessing closed the unit and locked it. She pulled a phone from her bag, typed a short message, glanced left and right, and got into the passenger seat. The van left, number plate tilted up just enough to hide its full face. Malik paused the frame when the plate flashed through sunlight. 2 letters. A smear of numbers. Not enough. The manager scratched his head. "We can give you the clip," he said, "but the angle did not love you today." The sergeant's mouth became a straight, unhappy road. "Thank you," he said. He took the clip on a flash drive, signed a receipt the manager produced with bureaucratic joy, and headed back out. In the thin shade by the wall, Malik stared at the space where the van had been and tried to draw lines between facts that resisted shape. Blessing had keys to a foundation unit. Blessing had the Bible. Blessing had let men into the unit and left with an iron trunk. The text to the lawyer asked for the deed box by midnight. If the iron trunk was the deed box, why demand another? If it wasn't, what was it? A decoy? A container for pressure? "What's inside Unit 13?" Malik asked the manager, grasping at any thread. "What do people usually keep?" "Machines," the manager said, counting on his fingers. "Spare parts, wedding chairs, sometimes old files. Church people like to keep drums and plastic nativity. This one," he tapped Unit 13 on the monitor, "was rented last year by the Obioma Foundation. The woman came with documents and smiles. She said it was to keep books and relief items. Salt, rice, mosquito nets. We see bags go in. We see boxes come out. Nothing noisy." "What woman?" the sergeant asked, even though he already knew. "Blessing," the manager said. "She signs." Back in the car, the lawyer's phone buzzed again. Same unknown number as before. Another text. "You are chasing shadows. If you want her to have a quiet night, stop the police and send Dre with the box by midnight to Carter Bridge under the 3rd light pole. Come alone." The sergeant read over his shoulder and whistled low. "They are confident," he said. "Confident sometimes means careless. We can set a trap." "We can also lose a life between planning and pride," the lawyer replied, eyes on the words that had turned a city landmark into a threat. Carter Bridge had carried more secrets than any court. It did not need one more. Malik looked at the time. His mind drew a map of the hours like a string he could pull too tight and snap. "We cannot give them Dre," he said. The sergeant's eyes slid to him. "We also cannot control Dre's phone," he said. They turned the car toward the hospital. As they drove, the world continued, as if it did not know one family was a tangle of rope and knives. A woman sold suya, turning the meat with patient wrists. Children in school uniforms argued about a superhero who could do nothing about property law. A billboard promised fast internet to people who knew slowness was sometimes safer. At the hospital, the waiting room had shifted by half an inch in the direction of relief. Amara stood when they entered. "She woke again," she said quickly. She drank water. She said Malik's name and asked where her Bible had gone. I told her we are looking. She closed her eyes and said, "The altar with no cloth." Then she slept. "The church altar had a cloth," Barrister Udo said. "But the foundation unit is an altar where people bring offerings and take receipts." Malik finished, the words bitter in his mouth. "They took a trunk from there." Dre sat with his head down, phone in his hand, a statue carved from worry, and something else that would not admit its name. When the sergeant's shadow fell over him, he lifted his eyes. "So," he said, "did you find your holy book thieves?" "We found enough," the sergeant said. "Your aunt by marriage keeps keys to a place where men moved a trunk that could be what they want from you." They sent another text. Dre's face closed like a shop at dusk. "What did it say?" "The same lie in a new shirt," the lawyer answered. "Bring the deed box by midnight. Come alone. Carter Bridge." Dre's thumb rubbed his chain. "I can go," he said. "They want me. Let me go." "You are not luggage," the sergeant replied. "No one sends you because someone else says please." Dre laughed without sound. "You people think you know Lagos," he said softly. "You know files and clips and prayers. You don't know what midnight under a bridge means." Malik's eyes narrowed. "And you do?" Dre looked at the floor. "I know people," he said. "From before. From trying to start things the wrong way. From borrowing to make a dream stand, and watching it fall with my name still owed. I know what it costs when a man can't show that he belongs in a family where money sits in quiet boxes." He looked up, and his mouth twisted. "I know how men like to test a husband." Silence held a small trial in the room. Barrister Udo's face did not change, but his mind rearranged some furniture it had hoped to keep in one place. "Debts?" he asked. "Simple as weather." Dre didn't answer. He didn't have to. The answer had already been printed in the set of his jaw. The sergeant turned to the lawyer. "We will not play by their script," he said. "We will write our own. I can put uniform at the bridge and plain clothes on the walkway. We will trace the number. We will—" He broke off because Amara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting a cousin, a prayer, a bill. Her face drained. "What?" Malik asked. She held up the screen. A video had arrived from the unknown number. It showed the hospital ward, filmed from a low angle behind a curtain. It showed a sleeping old woman whose hand someone had dared to frame in their phone camera like a souvenir. A gloved finger hovered over her wrist and tapped the vein as if measuring time. The camera tilted toward the corridor, where a security light glowed green. Then words appeared on the video in white, typed over the picture. "The altar is not only a table." Amara's breath hitched. "They are here," she whispered. The sergeant ripped the curtain open. Nurses jumped. Patients looked up, offended by the sudden skillet of fear. He scanned the corners for the glow of a lens. Nothing. Another officer had already started down the corridor in a soft run, eyes sharp for someone leaving too quickly, too slowly, in the wrong rhythm. The video pinged again. A second clip. This one outside, in the hospital parking lot. A hand, dark, scar on the thumb, a bracelet of thin red thread, placed a small piece of folded paper under the wiper of the lawyer's car. The camera shook, then steadied, and the person behind it looked straight at the lens for a breathless half-second. It was Sade. No scarf. Hair braided tight into cornrows like a girl trying to grow steel. Her eyes were wide, but not wild. She held the paper's corner as if it was hot, and she was brave. Then she disappeared into the wash of taxis and umbrellas. They rushed outside. The sergeant reached the car first and plucked the paper free as if defusing a small bomb. He unfolded it. 6 words written in neat, upright letters that had learned to write from church programs. "Do not send police. They are watching." Below it, another line in smaller letters, "Blessing is not the head. He is." "Who?" Malik asked, voice tight. Before anyone could answer, a van with a dented fender eased into the far end of the lot and rolled past like it had right-of-way over air. 2 men sat in front. The windows were not tinted, just dirty. Dre, without thinking or with too much thought, took 1 step toward the curb as if pulled by a rope looped through his chest. "Stop," the sergeant ordered. But the steps kept coming, 2, 3, like the start of a race no one had registered for. The van slowed. The passenger window slid down with the lazy purr of something that had been serviced yesterday. A hand came out. It wore that thin red thread. "Dre," the driver called, voice casual, the way you greet a friend at a barbecue. "Guy, come, make we yarn." The lawyer's hand clamped Dre's forearm. Dre hesitated a breath. Then, like a fish learning nothing from all the stories about hooks, he yanked free. He jogged to the van. The side door slid open. A palm flattened at Dre's back like a welcome. The door slammed. Tires bit gravel. The van lurched, then shot forward and out of the lot into the river of road. The sergeant was already running, whistle slicing air. An officer dove into the police pickup, engine coughing, then roaring. Malik sprinted 5 steps after the van and stopped only because the lawyer's shout found him and pulled him back. In the place where the van had parked, a small square of card lay on the ground. The sergeant snatched it up. It was a laminated staff ID from a logistics company at the port. The photo had been scratched, the name line smeared with ink. Only one detail remained clear. A stamp in blue, the kind used by port unions, with 3 letters big and simple. OMA. Papa Sam stared at them. "Obioma," he said slowly, saying the whole name the way a warning is spoken before it splits into emergencies. "The foundation, or the ghost of it." The lawyer looked at the road where the van had vanished, then at the hospital where the woman who had built a life like a careful market stood between sleep and the story she wasn't done telling. He folded the card. He folded his mouth. He folded his fear because it was big and needed smaller space. The sergeant slipped his phone into his pocket after barking orders that sounded like maps. He faced the family. "We will get him," he said. Malik's eyes were flint. "Get him alive," he replied. From inside the ward, a nurse called for Barrister Udo. He turned, halfway between the road and the door, the living and the papers. Amara's voice rose, high and cracked. "Barrister, Mama is asking for the altar key." And out on the road, as if the city had been given its cue by an old drummer, thunder rolled again, though the sky was still blue, and the clock crawled toward a midnight someone else had already started. Barrister Udo stepped to the ward door, but a nurse held up her palm. "Give her 1 minute," she said. "If you flood a recovering room with questions, the answers run away." He nodded, and in the pause, the word altar kept moving through the hallway, touching faces and refusing to stay only a word. Amara stood by the window, fingers pressed to the glass as if feeling for a pulse in the city. Malik paced once down the corridor and back, footfalls steady like a drum nobody else could hear. The nurse finally waved them in, 2 only. Amara and the lawyer went. Mama and Kem lay as before, but not as before. Her eyes were open enough for the light to sit in them. Her hand found Amara's and closed, frail but stubborn. The lawyer bowed his head, the way men do when they know papers matter, but mothers matter more. "Mama," Amara said, voice soft, "we are here." "The altar key," Mama murmured, not bothering with greetings, as if the matter itself contained its own hello. "Not the church one, the family one. Your father carved it." "The family altar?" the lawyer asked. "At the mechanic yard? The little table where he kept the oil and the ledger when he prayed before opening the gate?" A smile flickered under the old woman's tiredness. "He called it an altar so he wouldn't forget who gave him hands. He made a key that is not a key, for a box that is not a box. The real key hides in the useless thing people overlook when they come to steal." Her eyes slid to Amara. "On the day before he died, he said, 'If men become wind in this house, do not chase them. Tie your scarf, drink water, and open the useless thing.'" He laughed. We both laughed. It sounded like a joke. It wasn't. "What useless thing?" Amara asked. "The pestle," Mama said. "The small one your father used to crush cola when guests came. The handle unscrews. He hollowed it. He put in a tiny brass key and a folded paper with a name only the lawyer would know." The lawyer's head lifted, breath catching on a memory. "A name?" he said. "Whose?" "Obioma's son," Mama answered, and the word softened the hard corners of the room. "He said the day would come when the woman we named the foundation for would send help back through her blood. He didn't tell me how. He only told me where to look for the key, so I wouldn't beg men who loved power more than peace." She blinked, slow as a curtain closing. "Bring me that pestle," she said, firmer. "Before midnight becomes something else." The nurse touched the lawyer's elbow. 5 minutes, she warned gently. Then she sleeps. They slipped out with the instruction folded into their bodies. Malik was already by the door. "Mechanic yard," the lawyer said, "the small cola pestle. Inside is a brass key and a name." Malik's eyes brightened the way a generator brightens when the choke finds itself. "I know the pestle," he said. "We used it to crack ground nuts when the twins were small and greedy." "Go," Amara said. "I'll stay with her." "Come with me," Malik told Papa Sam and the sergeant. "If Blessing and her people sniff this, they'll come hungry." They moved again, a small storm forming around a single object no one else would have noticed. The drive to the old mechanic yard took them past Carter Bridge, gray arches, water shining like secrets below, then into a knot of streets where iron learns patience and rubber finds its temper. The yard gate squeaked when Malik pushed, a sound from childhood, unchanged. Inside, the altar table sat by the shed, as humble as a stool with a job. On it, a plastic bottle of oil, a clean rag, 2 dried palm fronds from last Palm Sunday, and the small wooden pestle with a smooth handle the color of tea. Malik reached for it, then stopped because caution is a cousin of respect. The sergeant bent, scanned the dust, read footprints like verses. "Nobody been here today," he announced. "At least nobody who believed shoes belong on feet." Papa Sam kept watch at the gate, wide back, filling the space like a faithful door. Malik lifted the pestle. It weighed more than memory. He twisted the handle gently. Nothing. He tried the other way. It resisted, then gave with a quiet sigh, threads scratching wood like an old man's laugh. A small cylinder slid into his palm, a brass key no longer than a finger, old enough to have learned patience, wrapped in oiled cloth. Beneath it, something thinned and brown, a folded slip of paper. He unfolded the cloth and the paper on the altar table, careful as if opening a newborn's fist. The paper held two things in Chike's careful writing. The first, a phone number with an international code. The second, a single name, written slow to make it count. Obioma Jr., underneath, in smaller writing, Port, Unit 4, Wharf Workers Union. If trouble, call. Blood remembers. The sergeant exhaled. Port, he said. OMA, Wharf Union. That stamp on the ID we found wasn't just Obioma as a ghost, Malik finished. It was the Union, the initials, the same water, different cups. Papa Sam turned his head toward the lane. We no get much time, he murmured. If Blessing was smart enough to rent a unit in the Foundation's name, she is smart enough to put eyes on this yard. As if on cue, a motorcycle rattled past the gate and braked hard. The rider didn't look in. He looked at the road ahead, but his mirror gave him a sly second pair of eyes. He lifted his phone, thumb dancing. The sergeant caught the angle and didn't show he'd seen. He tucked the brass key into Malik's shirt pocket and pressed the fabric to make sure it lay flat like a secret that knew how to keep itself. Back to the hospital, the sergeant said. We call this Obioma. We see which way blood flows. They left through side streets that remember shortcuts when strangers forget. In the car, the lawyer dialed the number on the paper. It rang with the patience of old wires. Then a voice answered, deep, wary. Who is calling this line? Barrister Udo, the lawyer said. Friend to Nkemdelim Chike, widow of Chike, who named your mother's name on his papers and promised to send a call if the wind in his house became storm. The wind has become storm. The silence on the line changed shape. You are Udo, the voice asked, less wary now, more like a man checking that a door is what it says it is. I am, the lawyer said. Is this Obioma's son? I am Uchenna, the man replied. But the men at port call me Obioma Jr., because my mother's name walks with me when I stand up to count wages. Who has touched Mama Nkem? Men using the name of a foundation to steal from the woman who built it, the lawyer said simply. One of them wears a red thread and a scar on his thumb. One of them is a woman named Blessing. They have taken a trunk from Oworo Yard and a husband from a hospital parking lot. A breath went in on the other end, pulled hard. I know that scar, Uchenna said. He calls himself chief, but he is only a man who tells stories loud. He knows the union by the wrong doors. He calls favors from boys who are tired of small money. Will you help? The lawyer asked. You called, Uchenna said. Blood remembers. The line clicked dead with purpose. The lawyer held the phone for a second as if it might say something else, then tucked it away. Back at the hospital, the corridor had acquired a new temperature, hotter by 1 degree, like a kitchen where the oil has begun to dream of frying. Amara rose. Mama is dozing, she said. Twice she asked if Dre had said sorry. Twice she asked me about the altar again. Malik touched her shoulder. We found the pestle key, he said, and a number. The man is moving. He turned to the sergeant. Any word? The sergeant lifted his chin toward the window. 2 plainclothes officers leaned against a car across the street, chewing ground nuts like patients. City cameras near the lot caught the van at Marina, he said. Then again, near Ido. Uchenna sent word. The van is known at the port. He says, do not meet at the bridge. He says the bridge is for pictures, not for truth. Where then? Amara asked. Before anyone could shape the next plan, Sadi slipped through the sliding doors in a swirl of nerves. She wore a plain t-shirt now, no choir scarf. Her hands shook. but her mouth had chosen courage and was sticking with it. "I'm sorry," she said in a rush. "I thought I was helping when Auntie Blessing asked me to move the Bible. She said Mama told her to. She was standing by the altar room like she owned it. I believed because I wanted to be useful." Then she said to keep my voice small and my eyes smaller. I couldn't. I put a note on the lawyer's car. They caught Dre because they wanted to pull all of you to the bridge, where their friends hold the torch and the camera. The real exchange is not there. "Where?" Malik pressed. Said looked at the sergeant like a student who knows the answer and fears the punishment. "The port canteen," she said. "Back hall. There's a door with peeling blue paint. Blessing's chief uses it because the Union eats there and the noise swallows small facts." "Who told you that?" the sergeant asked. "Pastor," Said said. "He didn't say names. He said, 'If wolves invite you to a field, they want you to run where they have practiced chasing.' He told me to keep my eyes open and my body near crowds. He told me to tell you what I saw and hide when I saw more than I understood." The lawyer studied Said's face. "Sometimes you can tell when a person has stopped lying to themselves, even before they have finished telling you the truth." He nodded once, the kind of nod that writes a small receipt. Acknowledged. The sergeant considered the map forming in his head. Hospital, bridge, port, canteen, canteen door, men with red thread, a Union man with a name like Memory. He made decisions the way good men do in cities that talk too loudly, fast, and with a plan for the plan failing. "We move with two groups," he said. "One stays here with Madam. No one comes near her again with a camera, glove, or story. One goes to the port with plain clothes and Union eyes. We will not bring a deed box. We will bring an empty case, the kind thieves love because it looks like what they want. If their man reaches for it, we take his hand and his story together." Amara did not argue. Prayer and action are cousins too. She took the nurse's hand and said, "You will lock her curtain. Only I, the lawyer, Malik, or this sergeant may come in. If anyone else calls my mother Mama in a sweet voice, tell security to make their voice sour." The nurse's teeth flashed. "I was born with suspicion," she said. "Go." Down by the port, Lagos wore a different face. Salt and sweat, iron and rope, the talk of cranes and men who had learned to balance loads without losing humor. The canteen sat under a zinc roof that had survived ambitious wind. Women ladled stew into bowls that knew every lunchtime name. Radio news argued with a football commentary in the corner. Noise, as promised, swallowed facts with one mouth and spit them out with another. Uchenna waited near the back, a tall man with his mother's gentleness braided stubbornly into his posture. He wore a Union vest and the kind of eyes that knew who was new on any given day. He greeted the sergeant with a nod and Malik with a handshake that said, "Family," without claiming it. His thumb bore a small scar, not like the chief's proud one, but the kind you get from honest metal. "The van," he said, not wasting pleasantries. They parked by the supply store, then rolled to the canteen side. Their driver and the chief went inside and came out twice. First to look brave, second to look for someone who wasn't there. "Dre?" Malik asked. Uchenna's mouth tightened. "He is in the store office. A boy who calls the chief uncle went in with a bag and came out without it. They will not bring him to any bridge if we don't bring the box. They will carry him to a warehouse where cameras sleep. We have one window, and it is small." The sergeant touched his earpiece like he was scratching an itch. "Positions," he murmured. "Team 1, canteen. Team 2, store office corridor. No heroics." They split. Malik kept by Uchenna, who had a way of moving that made him part of the wall until he wasn't. The lawyer carried the decoy case, a metal trunk that clanked with bolts and nothing, but he carried it like a man who had held heavier. Sade, who had insisted on coming against every piece of her own fear, took the far corner with a plainclothes woman whose eyes could peel a lie like orange. The chief appeared as if the building had coughed him up. He was shorter than rumors often make men, but he wore height in his voice. Scar on thumb. Red thread. Shirt unbuttoned one extra notch like a signature. Blessing trailed him, face smooth like oil you don't trust. She saw the decoy case and smiled with her whole mouth for the first time. The smile sat on her like borrowed gold. "Good," the chief said, strolling as if strolling paid. "You came without the troublemakers in uniform." His eyes flicked to Uchenna and flinched, then smoothed like a hand over cloth. "Union man. How now?" "Now is hungry," Uchenna said, voice mild and full of teeth if you knew where to listen. The chief tapped the case with his shoe. "We take first. You get your man back. Everybody behaves like they are in a nice movie." "Where?" the sergeant asked from a table 3 feet away, chewing ground nuts so convincingly that the chief's brow barely creased at a stranger speaking. The chief jerked his chin toward the corridor leading to the store office. "Inside! Privacy! Holy things do not like noise." "Outside," Uchenna countered, equally mild. "Noise protects us. We will not step into your small room where cameras sleep." The chief's smile thinned until it was a blade. "If you believe in noise so much, clap for yourself," he said. 30 seconds. If I don't see the box opening, we will push your man into a sack and tie it with a story his wife can't untie." The lawyer looked at the sergeant. In his eyes were 3 choices and 1 path. He unlatched the decoy case. The hollow clanked like metal trying to sound important. The chief's eyes gleamed. He bent, peered, and laughed. "Empty," he said. "So you came to be clever. It won't fit you." He snapped his fingers. 2 men stepped from the corridor with Dre between them, wrists bound in front with nylon that did not care about dignity. Dre's chain still sat at his throat, defiance whispering to fear. He looked roughed, not ruined. He met Malik's eyes, and for the first time since the courtyard, softness shifted the angle of his mouth. The chief jerked his chin toward the box. "Put it down," he told the lawyer. "Walk away 3 steps. Let the husband come. I will count. 1, 2, 3. A new voice finished from behind the chief, and the canteen's hum dipped as if the room had blinked. A man stepped out of the supply store's shadow. Older than the chief, shoulders like bags of rice had known them, face that had once sold car parts, with lies that sounded like bargains. Malik knew that face from a photo that had hung crooked in a drawer once, a party picture his father had torn and left the half with strangers' smiles. Chike's old friend, the one the lawyer had mentioned when he said betrayal and mechanic yard in the same sentence. "Okoye," the lawyer breathed, not bothering to hide contempt because sometimes contempt is a shield. Okoye smiled with no joy. "Udo," he returned, voice thin and mean. "The man who hid a woman behind paper like a king hides behind walls." He looked at Dre as if inspecting a goat he had already priced. "Husband," he said, "did you enjoy your free ride? You talk too much in compounds you didn't build. This is where men learn whether their words can lift boxes." Dre's jaw knotted. "I learned," he said, surprising everyone by speaking like water over stone, not like a drum. "I learned how to say sorry. I said it to the wrong person first." I owe it to the right one when I leave this place." The chief snorted. "We are not a counseling center," he said. He turned back to the lawyer. "Final chance. Where is the real box?" The lawyer kept his face still. "Where you will never find it," he said, and in his pocket the phone vibrated once. An incoming message from Amara he didn't have time to read. Okoye's eyes slid to Uchenna. "You," he said. "Your mother begged from our shed once. She took soap. We did not chase her. Don't come to me with union mouth now." Uchenna did not flinch. "My mother plaited hair and fed truth to women with her laughter," he said. "She begged nobody. You are old and your memory is weak. That is not my business. My business is this. You will not carry a man under your arm today." Two things happened at once, the way Lagos likes to do when it thinks a story is too slow. First, the chief reached for the decoy case with his left hand and for a knife at his back with his right. The plainclothes woman at the corner moved like a lesson, pinning his wrist to the box with a thunk that sounded like a nail-learning humility. The sergeant rose without rising. One blink he was a hungry customer. The next blink he was a wall. Second, Blessing, who had stood one step behind Okoye like a shadow with lipstick, darted toward Dre, hands quick as lies. She grabbed his chain and yanked hard, not to hurt him, but to break the clasp. The pendant popped open, a tiny click, almost shy. A sliver of brass, no bigger than a bean shoot, slid out and flashed. Everything in the room looked at once. Uchenna's eyes, Malik's, the sergeant's, the chief's. Even the pot of stew seemed to hold its boil, waiting. Blessing snatched at the sliver. Dre reacted without thinking, and with all the thinking the morning had beaten into him. He turned his shoulder, letting the pendant swing into his palm. He closed his fist and rammed his hand into the pocket of his jeans, fingers pressing the brass bruise into denim. Malik lunged. Okoye shouted. The canteen exploded into the kind of noise you can't rewind. Chairs scraped. A bowl fell and scattered fufu like white birds. The chief twisted, tried to jerk his pinned hand free, and earned a pain that would visit him later in his dreams. Two Union men, who had been eating quietly, rose and became heavy, useful. Blessing reached for Dre's pocket, nails finding fabric and missing courage. Dre twisted, dropping his weight the way men taught him in schoolyards he should never have had to learn in. And in that mess of movement, one small, precise thing happened. A boy who had been sweeping under the tables, thin, fast, eyes older than his face, slid between them all, fingers quick as a thief's prayer. His hand darted into Dre's pocket and came out with the sliver. He ran. "Stop that boy!" the sergeant thundered. But thunder doesn't always catch boys who have learned to run between raindrops. Uchenna leaped the bench like a man half his age. Malik vaulted a chair. The boy shot past the counter, knocked a spoon from a woman's hand, and dove through the back door into the sunless corridor that smelled of fish and metal. In the half-shadow, he looked back once, and in that look was the face of someone who knew exactly who had sent him and exactly what would happen if he failed. He disappeared into the store office. The door slammed. A bolt shot home from the inside. On the other side of the wood, a voice laughed low and pleased, the laugh of a man who had waited a long time to hear a small sound. Brass against palm. Okoye's voice. In the canteen, everything hung for a second on a thread. The chief hissed a curse. Blessing clutched air. Dre straightened with a ripped pocket and a heart going too fast, and Malik reached the now-locked door and hit it with his shoulder. Once, twice. It did not budge. From outside, sirens began to rise, far and near, as if the city itself had finally decided to arrive at the scene. Inside the office, Okoye's voice floated through the door, smooth as bad oil. "Since you brought me the altar key by yourselves," he said, "let me go and open a future you will not like." The bolt slid back, once, twice.